All right, welcome to our Thursday night New York Giants Preservation Society meeting. It's a great night, very nostalgia. You know, you guys can go watch the Field of Dream games, but more importantly, we have Terry Cashman here, and I'll talk a little bit about him once I just go over what else is going on. Next week, we will have Mel Ott's daughter, Barbara Ott. The following week, the Mets are in town. There'll be no meeting because there'll be games. September, I got pretty well squared up. As far as October goes, I have people, but I do not want to schedule them yet because if the Giants continue playing the way they are, they will be in the playoffs, and I don't want to interfere with any games until we know the schedule. So we will go with that. 10 years ago, we were in the Hall of Fame, Steve and I, with Terry Cashman, our guest tonight. His wonderful song, Talking Baseball, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Very much deserved. This year is the 40th anniversary of his song, Talking Baseball. He is considered to be the baseball balladeer with many other great songs, and he also was in a recording group, Cashman, Pistelli, and West, which recorded albums, and they wrote Sunday Will Never Be the Same, which was just an epic 1960s classic song. So without further ado, I welcome Terry Cashman to our meetings. Terry, thank you so much for coming by tonight. Do you want to tell us how the song came to fruition and what was involved with it? Terry, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Could you tell us about how the song came to be and anything else about it? It's just a fabulous song that is, you know, continues to draw many, many fans.
You're talking about Talking.
Yes.
Call from.
All right, I think we're good now.
Much better.
Actually, at that time, you know, we had Life Song Records. You know, Tommy West and myself and a business partner, a man named Phil Kernet, who actually married in the neighborhood. I don't know if you know the Moldows from Hillside Avenue, anybody? Kenny Moldow and Barbara Moldow.
Yeah.
And we partnered with Tommy West, and someone came into the office and had a baseball song, which, you know, was nice. And Tommy and I said, "Hey, it's time for a baseball song," you know. So we signed the song and decided that we would release a Live Song record. On those days, you know, singles were two-sided, as you all remember. So we needed a B-side, and I said, you know, what the hell? I'll write something. And I was sitting in my apartment on 38th Street, and I had this picture, which was taken at Shea Stadium at an old timers game, where they took a shot of Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Duke Snyder, and Joe DiMaggio walking in from the field in their uniforms. So you saw them walking in toward home plate, still in center field, and you saw the numbers on the back, 5, 24, 7, and 4. And I looked at that picture and I said, you know, there's got to be a song here somewhere. And I started thinking about the center fielders in New York City and Joe DiMaggio. And I said, wait a second. Joe retired in 1951. And it was really Willie, Mickey, and the Duke, who played at the same time, we were all great at the same time. And when that dawned on me, I said, that's it, it's Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. And I started thinking about those days and going at night to wait on the corner for the early editions of the papers, of the News and Mirror and so forth. Everybody would stand on the corner in front of Adler's candy store. And we would talk about baseball. And everyone would argue about who's better. You know, who's better, Musial or Williams? Who's better, Campy or Yogi? Who's better, Scooter or Pee-wee? And the main argument was always who's better, Willie, Mickey, or the Duke. So I went to sleep that night thinking about these things and in my mind that scene on the street corner. All the talk that went on. I woke up the next morning and I wrote the song in 20 minutes.
Wow. 20 minutes to make a classic like that. I read somewhere, actually I heard you on WFAN stating that Joe DiMaggio was upset that he was not included. And then you wrote the song about Cooperstown, which included him.
Yeah, what happened was there was you guys will remember this, there was, during the strike, there was an old timers game in Washington I forget exactly where it was, in Washington at one of the fields there. And the night before they had a cocktail party and all the players who were involved in the game were there. And Ralph Kiner, who was a friend of mine, and I think through Rusty Stahl, because they worked together with the Mets. And Ralph Kiner said to me, hey, there's Joe DiMaggio, would you like to meet him? And I knew it was going to, might present a problem because we had to airbrush him out of the photo. We tried to get a hold of him, many, many times, but we never could get get his permission to use his likeness. So I went over and kind of said to DiMaggio, this is Terry Cashman, the guy who wrote the baseball song. And DiMaggio looks at me and says, oh, you're the one who took me out of the picture. I said, Joe, we tried to keep you in the picture, but we never could get a hold of you. I wanted to pay you to use your license and so forth. Well, he said, I have a lot of songs written about me. I said, no, I know, Joe. Don't worry. I'll do something special for you. Having no idea of what I was going to do. But that got me out of that. Next thing I know, Cooperstown called me and asked me to make an appearance that year at the induction. So I write a song about Cooperstown. And I said, I'll try. I wrote the song called Cooperstown, the town where baseball lives. And in the song, it says, I'm going to the place where baseball lives. Ruth and Cobb and Joe DiMaggio. And that repeats itself at least 3 or 4 times. So I sang Talking Baseball, and then I said, I have this song that I've written about Cooperstown. And I sang the song. Now, who's sitting right behind me? Joe DiMaggio. So I finished the song, I got a nice ovation, I get up and walk off, and DiMaggio follows me in the back of the stage. And he says, that was great. Now I know what you meant when you told me what you told me. He remembered when I had said to him, I'll do something special for you. And he was very happy to be, a couple put in the same breath as Ruth and Cobb instead of Willie. So it turned out great. And he was always nice to me.
That's great. We're going to open up to questions from the group. Somebody had written me a question. They wanted he's not here tonight. He wanted to know about the Simpsons episode where you sang Talking Softball, how that came to be and all about that.
Well, they had it called Homer at the Bat. And
What's in it? 2,500.
they decided to use talking baseball and called it talking softball, and they called me. We negotiated the rights with them, and they flew me out to LA, and they wrote most of the lyrics because they knew what they wanted to say, and I sang it, and it really exposed the song to a whole new audience, especially young kids.
That's great. Steve, you're up.
You know, that Cooperstown song is a wonderful song. Many times I've been in Cooperstown. As you're approaching the town, it's just a great song to play because it gets you in the mood. You mentioned Adler's Luncheonette. There's some guys on here that lived in the area, and the big place was Freddy's at the time. But an interesting Adler's Luncheonette story. When my wife and I, for the first time, went to the West Coast, we stayed in a hotel called the Beverly Laurel Motel, which was owned by the original Adlers, who supposedly left that store in 1948. But my question to you is, and a lot of people don't realize, some of your other songs, I could play this every day, The Catch and the one about Thompson's home run. Those are wonderful songs.
Thank you.
Legend of Herbie score, terrific songs. All of them. There's several albums. I have them. I think you mailed me one at the time after the Hall of Fame weekend. Just anyway, great songs, all of them.
They were, and you were, I guess, were you approached by MLB or each individual team to come up for a song for each franchise, Terry?
Well, what happened was that 1981 when the song was released. It was released before the strike, and it became very, very popular, mainly because of a guy named Pete Franklin, who was a sports call-in show in Cleveland, and the station that he was on was a 50,000 watt station, and one of our promotion people, Live Song, brought the record to Pete Franklin. He played it 10 times in a row, and that really broke the record and made the song become very popular across the country. So it had its run, and records and songs don't last forever. On the radio, thank God, my song has lasted 40 years. But all of a sudden, the strike hit. I guess it was in June. Excuse me. And all of a sudden, the song had a new life. And there was a video, which was done by Warner Wolf's producer, and Carmine Sincata, put together this video, and everybody started using the video on TV. So that gave the song a new life. And when the strike ended and they began, remember that year they had the 2 seasons, the first season and second season. And the Seattle Mariners called me and asked me would I come out to Seattle and sing the song and sing the anthem. Opening, the second opening day. So I said, sure, great. So I went out there, and when I got out there, they said to me, listen, can you include, at the end of the song, can you include some of the Mariners players in the song? And I said, sure, and I did. I put whether the guys were all, I forget exactly where they were. One of them was Jeff Burrows. And so, that went over very, very well. And the people with the Dodgers called me when I was in Seattle. Hey, you're on the West Coast. Come on down to Dodger Stadium, and can you sing the song and do the anthem? I said, sure, great. From there, I was called by the Atlanta Braves, and there was a guy named Larry Cantley, who, when I got to Atlanta, said, listen, you think you could write a song to the tune of Willie, Mickey, and the Duke about the Braves? And I said, I know that's pretty tough because, the Braves started in fall. Then they wound up in Atlanta. So I said, it's not going to be easy, but I'll try. Anyway, I wrote the song about the Braves, and it was pretty good. And everybody in baseball now heard about the fact that I wrote the song about the Braves. And a number of teams, including the Giants, came to me and said, hey, we'll pay you, X amount of dollars to write a song to the tune of Willie, Mickey, and the Duke about our team. So there were about 10 teams.
You may not be able to do this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But there were about 10 teams who paid me to write a song, for their team. And I said, well, I've done 10 of them. I might as well do all of them. So I decided that I would write the song about every team, and I did.
All right, Harvey. By the way, I love the one Baseball by the Bay. It's a great for the San Francisco Giants. Harvey, go ahead, and then Perry.
Perry, in the classic, it sounds biographical when you get to I guess you call it the bridge. I'm not a genius on this. Where you say, my old friend, the bachelor, he thought he was the Oklahoma kid. And your friend played hooky to see Duke. And then you say, and me, I always loved Willie Mays. I'm going to guess that you were and maybe are still a Giants fan.
Oh, I was a huge Giants. My whole family, except for my little sister, who loved Duke Snyder. He was a Dodger fan, but I had.
Thank you, Alan.
My mother and father were big Giant fans, and my two older brothers and my two older sisters were, the Giant fans.
So you were a part of the great debate, Willie, Mickey, or the Duke.
Yeah, well, that's what what I said. That would go on all. That was the big debate because
You bet.
if you look at the record books, Duke didn't last as long as a great player as Willie and Mickey did, but Duke Snyder from 1952 to 57 to 58 hit 40 home runs every year, and was every bit as good as Willie and Mickey. But as I said, he got hurt, and the Dodgers moved away, and he got a little older, and wasn't as good for as long as Willie and Mickey were. But my friends, Mike Green and Bobby Cook, Mike Green was the bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
Called him the bachelor because he was the first guy in our group to get married. And Bobby Cook was, known as Cookie, and he was a Dodger fan. So the three of us, we played a lot of softball in the 152 schoolyard, and played, all kinds of ball together. And I rooted for the Giants, Bobby rooted for the Dodgers, and Mike rooted for the Yankees. So we had a rivalry there, and into arguments and play games against each other, representing our team.
Thank you.
Perry Barber, and then Steve.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
So this is going to be a little low tech, but I just have to play this for everybody.
Was Bobby Bonds.
the father of Barry, who played for so many different teams. Well, he made it into the song. And Bobby Bonds can play for everyone. Yes, basically. It's kind of immortalized him tonight.
So
I was yesterday.
that was from the Mets game
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday. So your song is more than 40 years old, and that's how far the time, space continuum and reach of it extends. And I just thought that was so marvelous that they mentioned your song on the broadcast yesterday afternoon. So I didn't know if you had heard it, but
I heard
I
it.
wanted to give you a chance to hear it.
Harry Cohn. No, it's the 80s and Brett is the greatest. And Bobby Bonds could play for everyone. It's one of my favorite lines in the song.
Yes,
And,
Gary's too. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot to unpack in that line. Definitely. Brilliant. So, Terry, briefly, we met a long time ago. Before I became a baseball umpire in 1981, I was a songwriter, and I worked in the office with Gloria Bell, who was the sister of Barry Bell, who is Bruce Springsteen's longtime agent. And she introduced us, you and me, probably 35 years ago, but she introduced me to you as Dennis. And I was a little confused, but are you still on the run, or what's going on there?
yeah, my given name is Dennis Minogue. But because of certain circumstances, when I was working at the publishing companies for ABC, I was also writing songs, and I was taking songs around to try to get them recorded. And I didn't want the producers that I was going to see Dennis Minogue's name on the song. So I wrote as Terry Cashman, which is a combination of my nephew Terry Minogue and my aunt, who's named my father's sister, who was Agnes Cashman.
Okay.
What happened was I wrote the song with Gene Castilli called "Sunday Will Never Be the Same," and it became a huge hit. And I never could go back to Dennis Minogue.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. So,
Terry, how does it feel to hear that song played all the time still? It must be an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I love that song, and
Since when I went in. Get royalty at the time?
that's all, well, 50 years.
Great song. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys on the Zoom tonight that knew you as Dennis Minogue, those that grew up, as we said, grew up in the neighborhood. Gary and I were at the Giants reunion. I guess at that time it might have been Pac Bell, AT&T, I don't remember. In 2004, when they brought back the 54 team, we were there that night, as well as you were there. How did that come about?
There was a
2004.
Yeah, there was a fellow who was a big fan of mine, who was a Jewish fan and lived in the San Francisco area, and he called me and he said, "Can you write a song for the 50th anniversary of the 1954 series?" He said, I'll get the Giants to invite you to the ballpark, sing it, and they'll pay you. So I said, fine, And he called me back and he said the Giants want to do it. So I wrote, the song called "The Catch," which was the 1954. We swept the Indians. That catch was what people remember. I think that It was a good song, and it was a great experience because, but a few of the Giants were still alive at that time.
19.
Yeah, and I got to meet all the guys, and I met Willie before, and he was very gracious. And I knew Monty Irvin from different
Well, I'm on, but
in New York. So that was a great experience, and the one thing I'll always remember was that they had before the players went out on the field. Willie got up and talked to the players, all his teammates, and he was so terrific. People don't, they don't picture Willie that way, but he was just wonderful to his teammates, particularly Alvin Dark, who he said taught him more about baseball than even baseball. And it was very touching, and I got a wonderful thrill out of that. And then the players were on the field, and then I was introduced, and I sang the song. And I don't think it got a nice ovation, and people. It sounded good, but the people in San Francisco didn't really relate to the '54 World Series the way we New York do and did.
Anybody else? Perry, you have another question? Your hand is up.
I'll put it down. Thanks.
Terry,
No,
we see a lot on television when guys are inducted into the Hall of Fame, they get a phone call. What happened with your song in 1981? Who called you, and can you tell us about what exactly went on then?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you mean in 2011.
I'm sorry, 2011 when you got the call.
Actually, I got a letter, and a few people, including my wife, were making the Hall of Fame aware that was the 30th anniversary of Talking Baseball, and they had honored center field, John Fogerty's center field, the year before, and I think they decided, well, that one went over pretty well, so do something with Cashman and his song, and I went up, and it was one of the greatest thrills of my life. I gave a little speech, which I knew shouldn't be too long. The Hall of Fame is all sitting behind me. Appreciate when somebody gets up and it's too wordy. They want to get through things as fast as they can. But anyway, I sang the song, and I was told that a lot of the players sitting behind me were singing along with me, which is really tremendous. And I finished the song, and nice ovation. I walked off, and when I got to the back of the stage, I started crying. It was just overwhelming that this could happen. And furthermore, when they had a gathering afterwards with all the writers, all the players, and and they had drinks and stuff, and I went with my family. And as I was getting a drink, I tap on my shoulder, and it was Robin Young. And when I turned around, and he said to me, I really love that song. He said, congratulations. And then Ryan Sandberg came over, Paul Molitor, and the guys, they were all so nice to me. I couldn't really, I appreciated it, but I really couldn't take it. I was so thrilled by it. I was just really happy. And then to boot, the person who you would least expect to be so friendly and so wonderful to my family and sign autographs and take pictures was Ricky Henderson. And he, of course, has a reputation as not being the greatest guy. That day, he was just incredible, and I thank him hugely.
Well, funny thing about it, the year before, Steve and I were at the Fogerty when that song was inducted, and Steve said to me, "We are not coming back until Terry Cashman's song is inducted into the Hall of Fame." Correct, Steve?
You got it.
And it happened then next year. So what a great moment. All right, we got gonna go to Greg, then Paul, Harvey, and Perry, and Hindi.
Hey,
Go ahead, Greg.
Terry, thanks, Gary. Terry, first off, great honor to talk to you. I wanted to preface it by just thanking you for both American City Suite and The King of Rock and Roll, two of my favorite non-baseball songs. And I was wondering if I could ask you about a lyric in the original Talkin' Baseball, Roses at the Vet, Rusty Again is a Met. You mentioned your friendship with Rusty Staub. I wonder how that came to be.
Well, Rusty was, with the Mets in the early '70s, and he opened a restaurant on 3rd Avenue, called Rusty's on 3rd, and there was a sportscaster named Chip Sapola, who I knew, pretty well, because he was at NEW, and NEW was a NEW AM and FM were both music stations, so I got to know Chip pretty well, and he was very friendly with Rusty, and he introduced me to Rusty, and Rusty and I became friends, and friends for the next 50 years.
Okay. What do you remember best about Rusty besides, what a good hitter he was?
Well, he was one of the most generous people I ever met, and he's done more charity work, especially for the widows and children of the firemen, and he's raised millions and millions of dollars, which is given to those people in their time of need.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're gonna go to Paul and then Hindi, since Hindi didn't get a chance yet, and then Harvey and Perry. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, Terry, thank you so much for your work. Your baseball song is terrific. Sunday Will Never Be the Same was one of my favorites, as well as Spanky and Our Gang. I love that group. They were just really terrific. And I just wanted to thank you for that. And the other question I have, is there something on, perhaps on I'm going to date myself, forgive me for being technologically backward, but is there a CD collection of your favorite songs out? Or how would we get them?
Of my favorite songs, or?
Yes. Yeah, the songs that you wrote and authored, yeah.
Paul, I sent out a link on his greatest hits, baseball hits.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess I did.
it's on the link that I sent out.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Terry.
Hindi, go ahead. Hindi, unmute yourself. You got to take off your mute.
Hindi, you got to unmute. Oh, God.
There you go.
I had a request, not a question, but Gary, you answered it just now. I was hoping to hear the song.
You were hoping to hear the song? I don't know if Terry wants to sing the song now. That's up to him.
Terry, could you sing the song?
No, not right now.
All right. Hindi, I sent you the link to the song. You'll see the video also. Harvey, go ahead.
Terry, technically, you said it took you 20 minutes. What did you do? Write the music first or the lyrics first? How do you go about doing that and then producing this great song? But how do you go about writing that?
Usually with me, the lyrics come first. And I went to bed that night thinking about those, and what went on the street corners and that whole thing. And, you know, all of the talk of, you know, those days in the 50s were about the 50s. And I started thinking, so, well, you know, 1950, the Whiz Kids won it. And then in 1951, Bobby Thompson had done it. And there was a picture that I had of Yogi Berra where he's reading a comic book. And that was a pretty famous picture. So the lyrics were in my head. The Whiz Kids were one, Bobby Thompson had done it. And Yogi read the comics for a while. And I took out my guitar and I started, you know, playing the guitar. And the melody just came to me. And I just, you know, wrote the song in 20 minutes.
She was extraordinary. Thank you.
Perry, go ahead.
So, Terry, I think the ratio of the adoration that's been expressed by everybody here for your songs and your music to the modesty that you have used in talking about your accomplishments and all of the awards and honors you've earned, which I see a very nice display behind you of some gold, platinum records. Can you tell us what those are and how many gold, platinum records have you won? And please boast about it. You know.
Well,
How far along that wall does that display extend?
you know, it's the whole wall.
The whole wall. Okay.
You know, it's you know, mainly, you know, well, the Sunday will be the same. And somebody mentioned Henry Gross before, and Tommy West and I produced the record Shannon, which sold over 1 million.
Oh yeah, that was a big hit. Yeah.
And Tommy West and I produced Jim Croce. We had,
So here's a funny story. I was dating Gino Kahn, who was Henry Gross's bandmate. They had both come over from Sha Na Na when Henry broke off. And so when they were playing at Max's Kansas City back in, I think it was 1974, they were opening for Iggy Pop, who had this shtick he did where he would leap off stage, presumably into the arms of his fans, like an early mosh pit. But this one night he missed, or they missed, and he wound up landing on shards of glass on the floor and had to be carted off to the hospital. So Henry Gross got bumped up to headliner at Max's Kansas City, and he was nice enough to ask me to be his opening act for the next 3 nights. And from that gig with Henry Gross, I hooked up with some agents who sent me out on tour to a bunch of colleges around the Northeast. And I wound up being the opening act for Bruce Springsteen and Hall & Oates and a bunch of pretty well-known bands. So I owe Henry a solid for that. So.
Terry,
Okay.
I have seen your name on repeats of the closing credits on the Partridge Family. How many songs did you contribute to them?
Tommy West and I wrote 6 songs that were in. We wrote a few more, but they used six of our songs in the episode, and a couple of the songs are pretty good, but they never became singles because the people who controlled the release of the singles wanted their own songs to be single.
I got one more question. How did Play by Play come about? Was that your from being in New York and having you know, Russ Hodges and Red Barber, etc.?
Alan, yeah. It was That song was written, for something. Someone came to us and wanted a song about announcers. I forget exactly what the situation was, but that's how the song came about. And it was one of the earlier songs that I wrote. And when I wrote that song, I realized that I had this gift for writing songs about baseball, and nobody else was doing that. Fogarty, Senator, he never wrote another baseball song. So I saw an opportunity.
How many people are in surprise now? Just counted though.
Can you hear me? Somebody was talking.
Yeah.
So I saw an opportunity, to start something that, became something that I've done for, 20, 30 years. And I'm very proud of most of the songs. But
Go ahead, Steve.
I guess your daddy did see the great Bambino play.
yes,
In one of the songs.
my father was born in 1900.
Okay.
He was a
Play by play on the radio. Play by play.
Well, my daddy saw the old Bambino, but that was the song I wrote for Babe.
That's right.
He actually did see him.
Does he have a lot of memorabilia from people?
He was a great Giant fan. And I was thinking about, you guys and Giants and my family's love of the Giants and my father. When Willie came up, he said to me, this guy is going to be a great player. And he reminds me of Tris Speaker. I said, why? He said, because he plays so shallow. Tris Speaker played center field, played very shallow. And Willie will always say that he played shallow because he could, as we all know, could go back on the ball like nobody else.
Steve, go ahead.
Just one more thing about the Cooperstown weekend. I'm sure you remember when you were in that building signing autographs or selling tapes, whatever. On your right was Ralph Branca. And I'm only sorry I forgot to introduce you to Ed Logan, who is still, he's exactly your age, and he lives in Arizona where I live now. And of course, the dad was the longtime clubhouse manager for the Giants. He was up in the room, and I don't know, with all the chaos and stuff, we didn't think about it.
Anybody else? Barry, did you have another question?
No, sorry.
Anybody who has not had a chance to ask anything, now's a good time. I'm going to ask one more, Terry. Getting back to your, you probably were in awe back then of Joe DiMaggio, as everybody probably would be. But when he asked you about, being in a song, did you jokingly say, hey, you were in the Simon and Garfunkel song and, you talked about, or were you too nervous? Because I know I would be very nervous to say something like that.
I knew, the big song, is when he had the
Joe DiMaggio.
Main Street.
Joe DiMaggio.
Yep, and that was a big song at the time, and I'm sure he was mentioned, not only in Paul Simon's song, but in other songs. But that, the situation as I described it, was pretty uncomfortable because, he was Joe DiMaggio and he accusing me of taking him out of the picture. And I just, as I said, I just wanted to get out of that situation. So.
Well, all the songs that your whole career is fabulous, and baseball songs. Most of the guys here came to hear about that, and you answer a lot of questions. Anybody else have any questions before we say goodnight?
What's his most
Harvey,
special?
Harvey, you have a question? Go ahead, Harvey.
One quick question. Terry, did you ever meet Mickey Mantle?
Oh, yeah. I met all the guys, you know, all Willie, Mickey. You know, Mickey was unbelievably friendly. Every time I would see him or Willie, they were all very, very happy with the song. And they loved being mentioned with the other guys. And that made me really good. But I'll tell you, really, one of my favorite stories about Willie. When the song came out and it became very popular, Willie was working at Bally's. And Bally's, you know, called me up and said, hey, you know, we'd like you to come down to Atlantic City and we'll do a press conference with you and Willie and all the writers. And, you know, it'll be nice publicity for you and the song. I said, sure, it would be great. Now, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, I didn't want to use the likeness of all guys. And when we used Willie, Mickey, and the group on a lot of the records that we put out, we paid them each $2,500 and gave them a royalty because, you know, we didn't want to be accused of taking advantage of these guys. So I was on, you know, the next day I was headed down to Atlantic City and I was in Rusty's restaurant. And I said, Rusty, I'm gonna meet Willie tomorrow. Excuse me. And he said to me, be careful, you know, Willie's nickname is Buck because, you know, he likes money. And I said, you know, I got it covered. I got a check in my pocket for $2,500 that I'm going to give him. So Rusty said, okay, that'll take care of it. So I went down, got in this room in Atlantic City, and the song is playing, and people are taking pictures, and in walks Willie. And I'm sitting at a table, and Willie comes over and sits down next to me. And he says, do you have a release for the song? I said, Willie, you're a very famous man and a public figure. I don't, you know, you can be mentioned in the song, and you know, you don't have too much to say about it. I said, but I almost had tears in my eyes. I said, Willie, I've loved you since I'm 10 years old, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. And I took the check out of my pocket and I handed it to him under the table. Willie looked at the check, looked at the amount of the money, looked up and said, you know, this song's got a good beat. Swear to God, it's a true story. He was very nice to me after that. And he said, come on, I want to take you to lunch. And so we went downstairs, we were having lunch. And I said to him, you know, Willie, everybody thinks that, you know, the catch you made on Vic Wertz in the 54 World Series is your greatest catch. I said, it's your most famous catch, but the greatest catch you ever made was on Bobby Morgan, 1951 at Ebbets Field. In left center field, you dove and caught the ball and hit yourself, your head against the wall, knocked out. And Jackie Robinson came out not to see if you were okay, but to make sure you didn't drop the ball. And then I told him some other things that I knew, you know, which number, you know, one of them was that we were in Philadelphia, and you know, we would drive down to see the Giants play the Phillies because that, you know, when they left, that's the only time you could see them because the Mets didn't exist. And there was one game where Willie was dancing off second base, and Robin Roberts got off the mound and walked out to second base. And I said, Willie, do you remember that? He said, yeah. I said, what did he say to you? He apologized to me. You know, shouldn't have done that. And he walked back to the mound. And Willie looked up and he says, you know more about me than I do. my Willie story.
That's great. Anybody else with a final question?
Yeah, Gary, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
You talked about how you wound up writing a song for each of the teams in Major League Baseball. Which was the toughest team for you to come up with lyrics for? And was the reason for that being that the team might not have had such an illustrious history?
Exactly. Yeah, the toughest ones were the Diamondbacks and the Marlins. Although they did, they did win a pennant, a World Series. But those teams were the toughest. And as I said before, the Braves were very difficult because they moved around so much, and also the Giants and Dodgers because San Francisco and LA didn't relate to the way that we did in New York. So had to
Being a Giant fan, was it hard for you to write a song about the Dodgers that was in a positive light for their organization, being a Giant fan?
I wrote all the songs pretending that I was a fan of that team. And, if I was a fan of that team, what players would I like to have mentioned, and what events would I like to hear about? So that was Dodgers, were like the Giants, the franchise. And the Yankees were easy, Detroit, and the Cardinals, was very easy because, as you said, those teams with great history, so there was a lot to draw.
Thank you.
Mo, you have a question, Mo?
No, but I'm a little late and I didn't want to miss the broadcast.
Okay, well, you missed a great one. Terry,
No.
we can't thank you enough for spending, about
Gary.
an hour with us.
Gary,
Yes, did somebody have something to say?
yeah, it's Rick Swig.
Hey, Rick, go ahead.
So I haven't seen Terry for 45 years, but Terry, just to bring you into the loop, I used to work for Epic Records, used to work for Ronald Luxembourg. Hopefully you'll remember that. And I think that's the Life Song was a custom label through CBS. Is that true for a second there? Because I remember going into your office in New York and you were incredibly nice to me. I was about 23 years old, I think at that 24 years old. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you back into that. And I was a promotion guy, and I worked the Henry Gross record on Life Song. That's what I remember, and Henry was wonderful too. So I know it's a long time ago, but I may not get to speak to you in another 45 years. So I want to let you know that you were very kind to a young 25-year-old person at that point.
That's great. I'm glad I did that.
And I can't remember what the other records on Life Song were through Epic, but that's beside the point. That's a long time ago. Thank you.
Anybody with a final question before we say goodnight? Terry, we cannot thank you enough.
Gary, just one thing.
Sure.
No. It's okay. Just clapping.
The lady that since she opened for Henry Gross.
Perry.
Yeah. What's her name?
Perry Barber.
Perry Barber. Because I speak to Henry pretty often, so I will mention her name.
She seems very happy with that. Let's all give it up for Terry Cashman. Terry, again, we can't thank you enough. If you ever want to come back and sit in the crowd, please join us, because we have a great group here and everybody was so excited that you were coming on. So we really thank you so much.
Great.
Terry Cashman. Guys, I will hang here to close out the room, but have a great night. We'll see you next week with Barbara Ott. And I'm going to hang here for a while.